There's a wonderful experience that was expressed by a French philosopher named Jacques Derrida. And I don't remember exactly the words, but he said this in many ways, in many different teachings that he gave, where he said, the guest is always arriving. And what this means is that everything is always arriving. And that when we're being the host, when we're being like Lord Shiva, of course, one of his many, many names is the host, when we're being more like Lord Shiva, we are being ready and welcoming to whatever is always arriving. And we know in many cultures, the idea of the guest or the stranger arriving is something that is really central to culture, that when someone arrives, we would take care of them. We would offer them food, we would offer them drink, we would offer them a place to sit, and we wouldn't deny people a place at the table. That's a very central idea to most ancient cultures and also to some contemporary cultures. When we think of the guest as, in this larger sense, of that which is always coming toward us, we live in impermanence, and there's ever-changing phenomenon, and there's always phenomena coming toward us, and then those phenomena are comprised of wisdom. So there's always wisdom coming toward us. And this is very much emphasized in stories from India about the arrival of a guest who we might not want, at least from the guest's outer appearance. So there's many, many teaching stories in the Puranas in India where someone who is disheveled and smelly and maybe not of our ilk, who is encountered knocking at the door and wants to be fed. And this is kind of the test of how knowledgeable the householder is about the ways of God. And the knowledgeable ones, the ones with some contact with wisdom, the ones whose sadhana has led to some realization, always let the guest in, recognizing that the guest is God. And then in some of these stories, the guest, this very lowly person, is let into the house and is fed like with the best food that that household has to offer. And even sometimes these households are very, very poor in these stories. The people that live there have virtually nothing, and they give their last food to the guest who arrives. And then at some point in the story, the identity of the guest is revealed to be Lord Shiva or Lord Krishna or something like that. And the guest then heaps rewards on the householder who welcomed them despite their outward appearance or despite the fact that the householder didn't have anything much to give. So we can directly apply this to our spiritual life, and that's what these stories are meant for, which is that there is always something arriving, and that thing that is arriving is always God. It's always God in some guise or another. Or if you don't like the word God, you could just say wisdom. And the attitude toward whatever is arriving is to recognize the wisdom in that and to graciously accept it, to honor it, to take care of it, to feed it, to nourish ourselves with it. So this is the guest and the host dynamic. It's very, very profound. As most of my regular students know, I've been kind of obsessed with hosting since I was a little girl. And now that I have Jayakula, I have foisted my hosting obsession on all of my students. And so at Jayakula, we spend a lot of time learning how to host people properly when they show up, also learning how to host spaces and learning the importance of preparing a space so that when people show up, even if they aren't consciously aware of it, somewhere in them they realize that the space has been prepared for them, and that's very relaxing for people. And we have lots of things we've written about hosting and talked about hosting. But I don't know that we've talked as much about the guest. So I think this is a great question, Tanya, and an opportunity for us all to think about the broader, deeper implications of who that guest is. We can also remember the teaching that the ultimate generosity of the Lord is that there are worlds instead of nothing. The ultimate generosity of the Lord is that the Lord is overflowing with forms of life that can be experienced and enjoyed. That is really the guest, right? So the Lord is the ultimate host, and everything that the Lord creates is the guest. So everything that we encounter is the guest. And if we are trying to be more like the Lord, then we are recognizing the guest as the Lord and hosting the Lord by hosting the guest. This is also symbolized with Lord Ganesha, as Lord Ganesha is also an aspect of host. So the older name for Ganesha is Ganapati, and the Ganas are the hosts. And Lord Ganesha is, on some level, the essence of the hosting quality of Lord Shiva. There's two kind of ways of encountering that essence of the host. One is just the space that everything appears in as the host. And then Ganesha, who's the emblem of hosting, he has this really big belly, and inside his belly are all worlds and beings. So he's literally hosting everyone inside of his body without exception. Sometimes people hearing a teaching like this think that that means that you have to be able to digest every circumstance with every person and not set any limits to people's access to you or something like that. And that's not really the case. We have to be real about where we're at. And the way that we can host people and other beings who might be dangerous to us, or someone we just can't, someone whose energy we just can't digest what they're doing, is by always feeling kindly toward everyone. That's the way we can host everyone, even the ones that we can't actually literally be around. That is a tall order. And we, a lot of times, I would say most of the time, especially here for people who aren't of Indian origin, we start doing a practice and our lives are still very compartmentalized. And we allow ourselves to indulge in lots of ideas and feelings and behaviors towards others and ourselves that are completely outside of view until we get into teaching or we're doing sadhana or we somehow remember our practice at some point. But then the rest of the day, we feel completely justified in not being in view. And the thing is that when we take on a tradition like this in a sincere way, we are signing up for kindness. We are signing up for kindness toward everyone in every single circumstance. I don't care if they're mass murderers. We are signing up for kindness. That we are signing up to embody the wisdom virtues of God as best we can, and to not give ourselves excuses and outs for indulging our thoughts about other people and feelings about ourselves and other people that are outside of view. So kindness toward everyone is really the ultimate hosting. that we can do, whatever circumstance we're in. So it doesn't do any good to physically host people in this wonderful, beautiful way that we get trained to do at Jayakula, but harbor unkindly thoughts towards people. That's not hosting. In this kind of tradition, there is no evil, there is no sin, there is no right and wrong. There is only the Lord showing up in all these diverse forms. And the bhava, the attitude, the feeling orientation is one of kindness, beneficence, compassion. That's what we're signing up for. So, knowing that we should do our best in whatever condition we are in to remember that and not be so lazy about forgetting it when it's convenient to forget it and suddenly become standard bearers of the Abrahamic traditions where people deserve punishment and people can be evil. We don't get to indulge in that if we are really being honest and honoring the tradition that we're in. So we are trying to be hosts like God, hosting everyone with the equal love, equal kindness, equal compassion, no matter what condition anybody is in. And this is the ultimate hosting. So even if you have to not see somebody because they're dangerous or whatever, or you just can't digest their energy, then you still are going to be kindly toward them. Even if someone is doing heinous acts, you are still going to feel kindly toward them. You're not going to kick anyone out of your family of beings worthy of compassion and kindness. So please understand, that is what you're signing up for. Nothing less than that. And of course, none of us are doing that perfectly because none of us are totally enlightened. But we are remembering that that's what we are doing. So that even if we fall into the traps of rejecting people's humanity or thinking someone is fundamentally horrible and not feeling kindly toward them, we still remember that that isn't what this is about. We still remember, oh, yes, that's just my karmic tension. Okay, fine, but that's not what this is about. It's simply not that.